I don't remember from our the class that we took some time ago, Khela, how it became that social construct, that the color of your skin became graded almost.
Who wants to answer Colleen's question? This is a great summary of the whole class you took.
Yeah, I know. I don't remember when. Social construct. Because if you look at Egyptian vases, you'll see slaves. And I just don't understand how a whole society, a social construct became that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it started with the Belgians. And the interesting thing is, like, the language, I know earlier generations, like, I'm pretty sure the word Ethiopian, the word that many Mediterranean peoples used for African peoples was Ethiopian, or related to Ethiopia, which meant beautiful people. And that, you know, so early human history started with a reverence and appreciation for darker skinned people as the source of all knowledge and civilization. But it was, I believe, related to the colonialization of the Belgians, where they had to come up with a justification for the horrific things they were doing, and they landed on skin color. I can't remember the exact wording and things they use, but that the origin, I think, is traceable to the language that it began showing up around the Belgian conquests of Africa as a justification for enslaving and brutally murdering people.
I remember that it really started back in the 1700s when there was a fellow in Germany that wrote a book about white people being, well, white became a term that it wasn't before. People were whatever color they were, but it's like, oh, this flower is red, how nice. Oh, this flower is white, how nice. But it became an issue as first him and then others started writing very badly detailed science, pseudoscience really, about white people having bigger brains and white people having, anyway, different things that made them superior. And it really became an issue when chattel slavery came into being in America, because they had to justify why they were doing what they were doing to people that they were bringing over and enslaving them. That's when it became a huge issue. It was adopted, and then all kinds of attributes were attached, negative, were attached to people who were Black to justify why they had to be treated the way that they did. And that's just a little tiny brief of the process.
There's a great video, actually. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the comments, that Pierce Freelon, Nana Freelon's son, was part of a team that put together about the origin of white people. It's really kind of very insightful, but it talks only about the U.S. and it starts with those miscegenation laws. Yeah. But it's very informative.
And it's all about power and money.
It is all about power and money. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it was all about a certain class of white people making all the decisions. And the poor people, the poor white people, who were initially being treated the same, they did things to make them feel like they were better than, they were at least better than the Black people. They may not be that good, but they're better than the Black people. And so they gave them all, and that still takes place to today. They give them all the accolades of who they are that's separate from being Black.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna share a video called "The Invention of White People," and it's by Jacqueline Badaloria.
Is this the lawyer one? She the lawyer?
Yeah, I think so, because she goes into very much into detail in the anti-miscegenation laws.
This is the fantastic. I remember this from the course. She goes over the very first mention of white in the legal code, when white was created as a category.
There it is, the one I shared.
Will that be part of the recording references, Khela, that you had talked about before?
Hey, you, Caucasian.
No, but I will save it for you and give it to you later.
I was going to share too, related to this understanding race as a social construct. One thing I've done, especially with young people, is a really powerful demonstrator of the relative biological unimportance of skin color. Is if you have a group of folks, you pull a select group of folks up in front of the room or whatever, and you want to make sure that you've pulled, you know, a diversity of skin color, but two people who are the same height. And you ask people who they think are the two people up there who are most genetically similar from a pure genetics point of view. And people always go to the people who have the closest skin color. But then when you tell them that it's actually the two tall people genetically have more in common, because it takes more, it takes more DNA to code for height than it does for skin color. It always throws people up, but it's a really great way to drive home that notion that, yeah, we've taken this, very small, genetically speaking, aspect of our reality and made it this huge thing.
Remember I said that the first 2/3 of humanity's existence was on the continent of Africa. There's more genetic, because we spent so much time in Africa, more than 2/3 of our entire existence as Homo sapiens. There's more genetic diversity within the continent of Africa than there is in the entire rest of the globe.
Mm-hmm. Please repeat that.
There's more genetic diversity within Africa than on the entire rest of the planet.
What?
So if you were, sending a spaceship of humans and you wanted to make genetic diversity, like save the human race and send them to the next planet or something, you would want to pick most of your humans from Africa and maybe one or two from other places on the planet to maximize your genetic diversity. If you're into sci-fi like me.
I have a question, Khela.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere, can't remember where, that there's actually also more genetic diversity within any given local area of humans than there is between people in different countries.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why that should be, but perhaps you have an answer for us, genetically speaking.
I don't. I've heard that as well. I would love to figure that out one of these days. All right, our next question is, how can we use the information we learned today in our social discourse about racism and racial justice? And I'm going to add, how can we also use it perhaps in our service activities? Especially given that I'm giving you all the resources if you want to How can we use this in our social discourse and in our service?
Hmm.
I'm sorry, how can we use what in our social discourse?
What we learned today.
Oh,
There we go.
Maybe we can ask others some of the same questions that you've been asking us today to start conversations about it. Possibly having some of the videos that you're using on our cell phones to be able to share those with others. Offering some of the references that you're giving us to the websites that have some of these facts.
Seeing white. I'm looking at your link, Lee.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've been reflecting a lot about just our role in engaging in public discourse, and I think being able to actually, I just took the orientation the Wilmette Institute offers, prior to taking a course that talks about the framework, of action that the Baha'i community is engaging with, and then the role public discourse plays in that. And then just that importance, it was so profound, that importance of understanding how many of our current, both our current language and our social institutions are founded on these false assumptions, right, of human nature and human capacity. And so when we're engaging in our community building work, I feel like we have to make very sure that we're not falling into kind of some of the easy traps of old world thinking that we know to be false based on, what Baha'u'llah has shared with us, but that just so much of it is coded in some ways very pernicious hidden ways in our language, that being able to just make sure we're using a different come from place, and we're not using the same assumptions that the rest of society is using about humanity when we dialogue.
Thank you. And having the science to back it up too is great. I'm really appreciative that Khela has come and given us his knowledge. It's really helpful. And Lee, what you said about using the example of the height is a good thing to do as well. I think that tells people, shows people, exactly what DNA can do and not do. Yeah. So, any other thoughts? Yes, Colleen?
I was raised in a very racially divided city. And back in the day, so I'm 65. And when I think about social construct, I keep on thinking about how divided cities are to this day. And so when I think about trying to even try to talk to even some of my family about social construct and racism, we're almost to a point where there's such a backlash about speaking about this, and it really disturbs me greatly that any talk about racism and inherent goodness or badness is a scary topic for me as a white person, because I don't want to, I want to connect hearts, not divide hearts. And so I am I struggle with some of my own relatives to know how to approach this. I know that's a very general thought process, and I apologize for that. I just wish we could have gotten farther along in how we think about people, and how I know that I still have ingrained ways of thinking that I still struggle to get rid of, you know. And I'm just going to say, why should I be surprised that this is still going on? I mean, this whole process of how we think about people of other colors. I still am, I don't know if in my Baha'i lifetime, of so many years, I'm going to be able to get rid of some of the junk that's still in my early years of how people talk and how people think.
Yeah, I'd love to offer, I'm going to put another link in the chat. It's a book actually called Reconstructing the Gospel by Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove. And I've been participant in several, especially church study groups who've been looking at this book, predominantly white churches. And it's basically, it goes into how, starting with very specific sermons given by a preacher from Raleigh, North Carolina, way back in the day, and how the gospel was basically, perverted, right, to provide a justification for the American system of chattel slavery. And what, without going into too much detail, basically, I feel like it helps people understand that for a lot of us, this notion of whiteness is basically been, propaganda, right? It has no rooting in any kind of scientific reality or moral reality, right? It's been pure political, economic propaganda. And a lot of, especially in some of these churches, even older, fairly conservative white folks, when they come across this information, more often than not, they're really upset at the idea that they were brainwashed into thinking this way when it has no foundation, and so I think there can be a way to approach educating our white family members in a way that's, it's like, we just sort of like what Khela was sharing, from paragraph 4, these qualities of our community where, we have to champion rationality in science, right? So we really have to help free people from this brainwashing, this anti-scientific brainwashing that has become, white supremacy culture in America. And it's liberating.
All right, we've got 1 minute left here, and then we're going to be sucked into the main room.
Who was
I
speaking?
say something specific to what Colleen raised, because
Cynthia?
it's an easy matter at all. No matter what we read, no matter what we talk about with others who think like we do or similar to, I think it's a gradual process. And there's I don't know if anyone has seen the movie You People. I think that would be a movie to watch together with your family.
You People, okay.
It's called You People. And it kind of, in a very humorous, comedic way, highlights some of the things that go on when people have prejudice and biases.
Thank you. Got it.
Music and comedy, that's a great way to introduce.
Music.